Dear Sister, I hasten to give you a detail of what we have been doing since I last wrote. I have scarcely got my other letter mailed before we are ordered forward. We took the rebels' first line of works, halted, and went to fortifying and building breastworks. Our brigade taking up position on the front line. June 23rd, heavy cannonading all day. Line Hooks and Schofield were advanced on our right and the rebels' works above them a mile or so, halted, established the lines. The rebels massed their forces on him, tried to drive them back, but was repulsed 3 times. Hooker and Schofield still hold their position. Our skirmishers advanced at the same time with Hooker, but fell back to their rifle pits again. When Hooker started to advance, the forward call was sounded on the bugle. The whole line of skirmish advanced, taking great many rebel skirmishers, but no intending to make a charge, but Hooker and Schofield. The rest of the line only made a fight to draw their attention from Hooker, and the plan succeeded well. The regiment of our brigade for skirmishers lost 91 killed and wounded. June 24th, scarcely any fighting on our part of the line. In the evening, our company and 4 others from our regiment were put on the skirmish. Our line lost from the skirmish line and held back the reserve skirmishers all day. Cannonading was heavy on our left. In the evening, we were relieved from the front and went back to the 3rd line. June 26th, scarcely any fighting along the line. 13 Corps came up, moved to the right. We have 8 Corps here now, nearly 160,000 men. On the morning of June 27th, we were ordered to be ready to move at daylight. We were ready at about 7 o'clock. We were going over in front of Stanley's division to charge on the rebel works. Sure enough, when we got in his front, we were closed by a division at half distance on our 1st Division. Our regiment was to take the advance on the 28 Kentucky in rear of us, 97 Ohio in the rear of them, and so on. One after another, the entire brigade was formed. Then the 57 Indiana was thrown forward as skirmishers, and none were to fire on them, but the rest of us were ordered to take off our gun caps. General Harker's brigade was to make the charge on our right the same way the others on the right in front of him. If we succeeded on taking the works, the rest of the brigade was to deploy to our left. Our regiment, being divided into 5 divisions, one behind another, our front line of battle being just the length of 2 companies, or about 30 yards being the full length of our front line. When we formed, we were some 200 yards from the works. We had to charge little after 8 o'clock. We were ordered forward. In an instant, we were across the ravine, which was between our lines. The air was thick with balls singing around us and over us, but on we went, until we were well within a few rods of their works. They had a line of brush and sharp sticks fixed to stop us. Finding we were not firing any, and they would not be hurt much by firing, and staying at their works, there were 2 lines raised up and took deliberate aim at us and kept up such a raking fire on us. Our boys, most of them having no caps in their guns, could not return fire, and then they were ordered not to fire. The line began to waver, and in 23 minutes there was not a single man standing up. Our whole regiment laid down rather than run back. The rebels kept pouring a tremendous fire on us from our front and right and left flanks. That a man raised his head, he was sure to get killed or wounded. Presently, one of the general's orderlies came to the colonel, asked him if he could go any further. He told him he could not go without support on the right and left, for they were not pouring a flanking fire on us all the time. In a few seconds, another orderly came to the colonel and told that Colonel Lane was coming up in his rear and would charge over us. Then we were to go on with him. I knew that it was useless and that it would only add so many more to the number of killed and wounded. I was lying at the time behind a small tree about 6 inches through. The rebels had a battery of about 20 steps to my right, which they used all the time. I heard a noise in my rear and looked back. Their second line was coming up to charge over us. They came with courage and pride, but did not reach any of us before they laid down the same as we had. Another line came up, although none got as far as I. On the right, 1st Company with Henry rifles and 16 shooters were most all wounded and killed. I knew we could not get any farther, and we had better get back as best we could. The rebels had found out we were massing our forces there that morning, and they had done the same. Presently, they raised the yell on our right and left bounced over their works to take us prisoners by flanking us. Most of the boys grouped up and ran back into the ravine. Some of the officers hollered for the men to fall back. I raised up, seeing most of our boys running back. Just then, a ball tore through my hat rim close to the crown and passed on after someone else. I laid down. I thought I would rather be taken prisoner than to get up and run back through a shower of bullets. I laid there some 5 minutes. The rebels had taken some of our regiment prisoners and were falling back to their work. Our boys had commenced firing at them from the ravine, about 100 yards from their works. From the ravine, the brush was all cut down, so it exposed our whole body to their fire, while they could shelter themselves all over by firing through under a log laid top of their works. I knew now was my time to get away, so I about-faced. Looking back, our boys were nearly all back, but the dead and wounded and a few others were in the same notion and same fix as I was in. I crawled back, digging my gun behind me. As luck would have it, I got back safe to the ravine. Our regiment had been ordered back into the woods, so I went on back from the ravine to our works. The brush and timber had not been cut down, and it hid us from view of the enemy. I got back to the works, found our wounded, and carried them back to the hospital. There, I learned that Lieutenant Hobble and Jasper Knob had been wounded and sent back to the division hospital. The leaves caught fire out in the field where all of our mortally wounded lay. A flag of truce was sent out. It was recognized and our wounded were saved from burning to death. The loss of our company is 6 wounded, including Dick Holb and 1 other missing. The loss in the regiment is 106 killed, wounded, and missing. And loss in the brigade yesterday I haven't learned. General Harker was killed. 2 captains and 1 lieutenant were found wounded in our regiment. We lost nearly 1/3 of our regiment. In the afternoon, we took up our old position. June 28th. Not much fighting along the lines. As reported while we were making the charges yesterday, our forces were crossing the river without much opposition, as they were occupied watching us. Although we were repulsed and badly cut up by cannonading tolerable heavy, we are not discouraged in this cause we are fighting for. This leaves me well, hoping it will find you all the same. Give my respects to all inquiring friend, and write soon and often. Will has been well on the 14th of this month. Receive yourselves to my highest and best wishes from your brother, Brooks Dunwitty.